Good morning, Indiana. Welcome to Who's Left This Week, a Sunday morning politics and talk show for the Hoosier State without all the bad faith, both sides, BS. My name is Scott Aaron Rogers, and this week I am coming to you from Portland, Oregon, where I am celebrating some family birthdays with the fam this week, having a great time. 60 degrees on the first day of summer out here in the Pacific Northwest. Enjoy that humidity. Don't save any for me when I get back. Appreciate it. Thanks. Now, let's bring in our panel this week, starting with Indianapolis rabble rouser Clif Marsiglio. Clif, welcome.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Always fun to have Cliff around. Love to get Cliff riled up, firing off some of that righteous indignation. Looking forward to it, Cliff.
Thank you.
All right. And hey, there's Tracie Martin. Tracie, welcome back.
Hi, thanks. Thanks for having me, gents.
Tracie here is organizer with NWI Takes Action. How's the scenic 219 treating you this week, Tracie?
It's hot up here. We're enjoying it, though. I might try to get out to the dunes, actually, if I can get away from my pool.
Oh, miss the dunes. That is always makes me feel at home. All right. Finally, there is Eric Love. Eric, glad to have you on the panel here for the first time.
Yeah, good morning, all. It's great to be here. And good to see you, Scott.
So, well, I wish we were getting together this weekend to talk about some more pleasant news. But yeah, let's begin with potentially World War III. So, after about a week of buildup, we talked about this briefly last week when Israel launched a preemptive attack against over 100 sites in Iran, including their nuclear sites. They killed military leaders and nuclear scientists. The Iranians responded with missiles and drones shot at Israel, some of which have gotten through the Iron Dome. There's been damage there on the ground and casualties. So a week of ramping this thing up eventually brought us to last night when President Donald Trump, after saying, well, I'm 2 weeks, I'm going to give 2 weeks to make a decision, after about 2 days, jumps in and the United States military attacked 3 nuclear sites in Iran, and we are on the brink of war. Cliff, how's that make you feel, buddy?
I believe we've already been here before, and I thought the mission was accomplished. I don't know which country it was. It just seems like we switch them out every few years, and we decide to attack some brown country in the Middle East to divert things. All the while, we sit at home and watch $300 million worth of bunker busters take out our tuition dollars.
Yeah, exactly. Always seems like there's money for war, eh, Tracie?
I just got a little dizzy thinking about what $300 million would have done. It'd be nice if we could kind of maybe siphon some of that money back to our Social Security offices so that our, moms and dads can not stand in line on crutches waiting to get help and get their Social Security flowing again. One bomb. Is that basically what we're saying, Cliff? One bomb is $300 million?
I was told that 3 sites were bombed. I don't know how many bombs. I've heard it was 300 million.
Just for one attack. Oh my God.
Yes.
Well, you have to count, all the logistics and getting all those planes overseas and everything else. Now I guess let me play devil's advocate and say, well, now that all the stuff's over there, the next one won't be so much. But really, the cost of this thing, I think, is the least of our problems. I'm old enough to remember when, like as Cliff was saying, that we manufactured ourselves a war in the Middle East on false pretenses in Iraq. and that was a country at the time that did not have anywhere near the military capability that Iran does now. This is not a walk in the park. Eric, I mean, this war, and I guess let's call it a war, Israel and Iran are, actually at a state of war. I feel like we sort of got dragged into this thing. This is Netanyahu's war, no?
Absolutely. And he doesn't want peace. He already has a plan of what he wants to do. There's no there's no concessions in Gaza. There's not going to be any concessions in Iran, and I don't think he's going to stop with the nuclear stuff. I think he's going to keep bombing Iran as well, and we're going to keep helping him for whatever reason. I think Netanyahu is one of the worst. I'll just say he's one of my least favorite people on the planet, possibly my least favorite. I'll just put it that way. He's a war criminal, and I can't believe we're even helping him do some of the things that he's doing.
It makes you wonder who is whose client state. For years and years and years after, during the Cold War, Israel was the United States ally in the Middle East, and there to serve strategic purposes, in terms of controlling the Red Sea and the various the Suez Canal and all that stuff right there. But in many ways, I feel like we are the attack dog that gets called in to do their dirty work now when Israel starts mess with their neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
By all accounts, including from our own Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who I'm no fan of, but our intelligence community said that Iran was not capable of making a nuclear bomb. And I seem to remember during the Obama administration there was a nuclear agreement between the U.S. and Iran that was working well and was being followed to the letter. And some Trump guy, was it, pulled out of that thing, allowing Iran to further enrich uranium to the point where, if they wanted to pursue a bomb, they could have. Again, by all accounts, they were not on the brink of having a nuclear weapon, but Israel went in and did this preemptive strike anyway.
Yeah, and you'll hear this term from me all morning: hypocrisy. And Israel is the only country in the Middle East that has nuclear weapons. They just want to make sure nobody else has those weapons, and so they can have absolute dominance in the Middle East. And I understand they need to protect themselves, and I know there's a lot of bad blood. There's a lot of hatred in the area, but you can't simultaneously prepare and prevent war. So prepare for and prevent war. So it's just hypocritical that they have nuclear weapons. No one's ever been able to go in and view their weapons and how many they have and what they're doing, but they want to make sure that nobody else can do that. Like no other than international agencies that check on these, if a country has weapons or not, they're not allowed into Israel to look at their nuclear arsenal. So that's just hypocritical to me.
My understanding is that, like, everybody knows Israel has nuclear weapons. I want to say I heard somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to 100 nuclear warheads, and yet they're officially ambiguous. Like, they don't officially have nuclear weapons, and they do not receive UN inspections and whatnot. Yeah, very much a rules for thee, not for me situation. I think we briefly mentioned this last week. I mean, listen, I'm not in favor of Iran having a nuclear weapon. I'm not in favor of anybody having nuclear weapons, but
Same.
why do
Correct.
we get to have one? Why does Israel get to have one? If any country on this planet has demonstrated that we would use nuclear weapons irresponsibly, it's the United States, the only country to actually deploy them in war. Say what you will about North Korea. Again, not a regime that should be emulated under any circumstances. But them having nuclear weapons gives them a degree of freedom from interference. And if you don't have nukes in this world, the United States and its allies are bound to push you around like we do with everybody. I don't feel great about any of this.
Well, we got played. I mean, Trump got played. No doubt about it, dude. Hey, I'll go ahead and I'll get this started. But if you could just come on in and finish this for me, then we'll all be done. We'll just. He got played hard. I do not want Iran to have nuclear weapons, and I do think it's important that we recognize that Israel is, for all intents and purposes, right now the only functioning democracy in the Middle East. So, I mean, if anybody is going,
I would debate that.
Yeah. Well, and fair.
Yeah.
But they certainly offer additional rights to more people in their country and treat their citizens better than many countries in the Middle East, particularly if you're
the Jewish ones. Yes. Yeah.
The Jewish ones. But there's going to have to come a time when we decide as a nation whether it's our responsibility to arm them.
I mean, we've been propping this thing up, and I feel like the United States could have shut this thing down at any time. Said, hey, take care of these folks. We can't be having this apartheid thing. We did it here. They did it in South Africa. We remained allied with them entirely too long through the entire thing. I don't know if we're gonna talk big game about freedom and democracy and human rights. Our allies should be held to a similar standard. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a naive hippie or something.
If we're going to talk about democracies in the Middle East, we also have to remember that we've had several functional democracies in the Middle East over the last 50 years. And every time we come around to having one, and the functional democracy says, hey, we don't think we should be giving you big oil or allowing your corporations to come in, we destabilize them and prop up a puppet government, which almost always fails within the first few years and then gives us exactly what we have now. Honestly, if I knew that I was going to have a functional government that was taken over by the US, I would be doing the same thing. I would be thumbing my nose at the US at every single moment because we do the same things to them. Just look at the freedoms look at the freedoms Iran had in the 50s before we put in the Shah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It was a thriving.
Yeah, then that's so much. Go ahead, Tracy.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so much of our mental space, I would say, in this country regarding Iran goes back to the Islamic Revolution in 1979 and the hostage situation, and very much like that's kind of where history started with Iran, right? And no, we don't like to talk about the violent coup where the CIA overthrew a democratically elected leftist Mohammad Mossadegh in I want to say it was 1953 or 54, yeah, and installed a puppet ruler, the Shah, so we could continue to have access to Iranian oil resources. Again, not a fan of religious fundamentalists running countries, but you can understand why people wanted to get rid of the Shah. messy things, messy.
Hmm.
So all that is going to remain hovering over us for God knows how long. This may be a series of limited missile volleys. This may amount to not a whole much, not a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. This may also turn into a larger regional or even worldwide conflict, and just God, we want to avoid that at all costs. But meanwhile, here at home, life does still go on, and our own little dictator type, Donald Trump, is not satisfied with the state of the ICE raids and number of arrests taking place in the country. Scooping up people at random at work sites and job sites, and schools and daycares and whatnot.
Graduation
isn't
ceremonies.
enough. Graduation ceremonies. Yeah, Trump is demanding 3,000 arrests daily, and had this to say on his broke down ass Truth Social website. Quote, "We must expand efforts to detain and deport illegal aliens in America's largest cities, such as Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York, where millions upon millions of illegal aliens reside. These and other such cities are the core of the Democrat power center, where they use illegal aliens to expand their voter base, cheat in elections, and grow the welfare state, robbing good-paying jobs and benefits from hardworking American citizens." There's more. I'm not going to read it all. It's just lie after lie after lie.
Yeah, don't do that to
Tracie, they've if you go by the numbers, right? The violent criminal, the violent crime rate amongst immigrants in this country is lower than that of native born citizens. And if you extrapolate that percentage across the supposed number of illegal immigrants living in this country, they surpassed the number of violent offenders a long time ago. They're just scooping people, like we said, off the streets, from work, from schools, from churches. Um, they're grabbing law-abiding folks, right? When is too many? When is too many for them? Like when is it going to bite
They're never
MAGA
gonna be
in the
too many.
ass?
No, they're never going to reach the point of too many, because that's not the point. What's happening in the immigrant community is basically being done by people that would be wearing a white hood and burning a cross if they could. This has nothing to do with crime. It has nothing to do with people breaking laws. It has everything to do with creating demonizing a cohort of people for political power. That's all that this is. And they will continue this until there is no political juice to be milked from these deportations, and then they'll move on to another group to marginalize and demonize. Next up will be trans. After that, it'll autistic kids. They'll pick on Black people when they feel like they can.
You mean always?
Yeah, always.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, Eric, this is going to hurt the economy. One would think. I mean, so much of our labor force, particularly in the lower wage sector, where a lot of immigrants wind up working, that stuff is the backbone of the economy, and we don't give a lot of thought to it until that sort of stuff's not working the way we want it to, right? Yeah.
Yep, and that's again, Trump is famous. He got the nickname Taco recently because he always backs out, and so now he's trying to carve out a an exception for farm workers and restaurant workers, and he hires a lot of illegals.
Oh,
that
yeah.
work
Oh, yeah.
in his spaces. So he calls for everyone to be deported, and then he's like, wait, but not the farmers. Somebody got in his ear, and he didn't think about it thoroughly beforehand, and so now he's trying to backtrack on some of them. But yes, I remember seeing an extensive article several years ago. It was about Alabama, where they passed like one of the strictest immigration laws of any state. So all the migrant workers left Alabama, and then all the fruit
Oh, I
and
think it was
vegetables,
Florida. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
they
Yeah.
just rotted in the fields. They tried to hire white people. They tried to hire black people. They could get a team to go in and work for one day or maybe a half a day, and they would like, to hell with
Nah,
this.
dude.
They were gone.
Yeah.
And so all this,
Mm.
not only did they lose all the money, but then we don't get the fruits and vegetables, for ourselves. Just the, I don't. It just
Yeah.
builds
Shooting
on each
ourselves in
other.
the foot. Yeah.
Absolutely, over and over and over again. So LA was burning because of fires, and now they have to rebuild, and now they're chasing all the they're either arresting or chasing all the builders away. I don't know
Yeah,
if you've been to
exactly.
a builder site, but most of them are Latino, all across the country. They're doing that work. So I don't know if they're undocumented or not, but they're doing the work. And if you disrupt that, people are not going to be able to build. So yes, it's going to affect the economy in so many ways. We're going to discover new ways as time goes on.
Yeah.
I just interviewed a member of the Hispanic community up here about ICE activity and what the community is doing to prevent it. And there's like, we're staying home, and he's like, businesses all over the place are struggling specifically because of the economic impact of the immigrant dollar, particularly small businesses that are owned by and frequented by undocumented or just the general Hispanic community.
Mhm.
So there is a huge economic impact that is just waiting to come and smack us in the face, and it's all in local communities. Our economy
Well, I'll tell you
and our
what.
agriculture has been forever.
Yeah, even real estate landlords who rent to migrant workers or immigrants, that now they can't rent. There's nobody to rent to. It's just going to just go on and on and on, and it's not going to help our overall, economic standing. If you look at all the people that were fired from federal government, all the international students that won't be coming to Harvard or other institutions that feed the local businesses, that feed that economy, that's going to affect all the DI officers across the country that have been fired, and that's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people from the federal government, from the universities that have just been fired and let go. That's going to have a major effect on everything, and we're not looking at what comes next. It's just like, I want to do this, and with no thought to it.
It very much seems to be the Trump regime's MO, is to do the thing and then figure it out later, if they ever figure it out. And so they make these arrests, might make them feel good, might make them feel like a big man for a little bit, but you go picking valuable pillars out of communities, folks that are holding up local economies, and trickle all over the country, pieces here, pieces there, pieces here. It's like a Jenga tower, eventually that thing gives way if you take too many pieces out.
And the taxes that undocumented people pay, that's millions and millions and millions of dollars, probably billions.
That they're never going to ask for back, because they are using the IDs that they use. They're never going to see those dollars back. That is free money for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But we always want to frame it in this country as like they're a cost, they're a drag, and that's not true at all. These folks that come in, they work, they do pay taxes. They circulate money through the economy, and just kind of keep the whole thing going. And without these folks, and it's just, they say, well, if you're in the country illegally, that is itself a crime. No, man, it's more like a paperwork error
It's
more
a
than
civil
anything.
crime.
Yeah, it is not like a violent crime. I'm fine, yeah, get rid of the violent criminals, but you'll find that there weren't very many to begin with.
Right. We're all in favor of that. Get rid of the violent criminals. Stop violent people from coming in. Do that. But when someone's seeking asylum, help them. And you'll also notice that ICE is focusing on Black and brown communities, mostly brown at the moment. They're not going to Slovenian communities in the U.S. where those, undocumented people are, or European immigrants. They're not going after them. They're just going after people of color. So there's extreme racial implications in what they're doing. And I think the reason there's so many undocumented people of color that come to the U.S. is because there's racial implications in the process to become a citizen, right? If you're from Europe, you can get in much easier. And it's not about your intelligence, your education, or what you can contribute. It's about skin color.
And it's important to know,
very sadly,
with these undocumented people. I spoke with a volunteer immigration attorney recently about this, and she's like, my people have documents. I mean, you're not kidding, Scott, when you're talking about this being a paperwork error. A lot of it is just they don't have the right forms, and that is an undocumented immigrant who's then deported to some fucking gulag somewhere. Like, these are not people that are coming in and saying, I want to break as many laws as possible. Screw you, immigration. They're coming in and they're doing the best they can. But for them, there's language barriers. There is access barriers. Maybe they can't get into the form they need because it's only in print. And that office is now closed because, hey, it's been understaffed because of all the layouts. All of these cascading effects on people who are just literally just trying to like live and breathe and do their normal thing as human beings. These are not people that are actively trying to flout these regulations because they don't believe they apply to them. These are people that are trying to keep up with regulations that change and have access to things that they don't have access to.
I had a brother-in-law, or I
because
have a brother-in-law who 5 years ago spent a year in ICE prison. 5 years ago, a year. He is a naturalized, or he is a legal resident, not a citizen. He was an asylum seeker 40 years ago. Never took the time to get a citizenship. And 5 years ago, Trump had him in prison for a year. No way to talk to a judge. 1 hour a week to be able to talk to an attorney.
Oh my
And
God.
at the end of the day, a year and a month later, he saw the judge, and the judge spent 15 minutes to say, case dismissed. Apparently, he's going back to court in August and maybe scheduled for deportation once again.
Ridiculous.
I wonder if maybe the liberal community should start looking at the economic impact of all of this legal work of our courts, just because the fact that understanding that these are living, breathing human beings just does not seem to matter to vast swaths of people. Does that?
Yeah.
How much is it costing us to take normal people like your brother-in-law, Cliff, and throw them into this legal mangler?
My family spent somewhere between $50,000 and $70,000 for the lawyer. That would pay off my house.
And what is it costing our government to have this ramped up machine of stupidity grinding our workforce perpetually for no reason? How much is that costing us? Like, do we have any clue?
I couldn't even begin to put numbers on this. I imagine. You know what? You make a really good point that for a lot of folks, yeah, the fact that these are human beings with hopes and dreams isn't going to move the needle for some people, and it has to hit them in the pocketbook. And that
Which the fact that that's
a
what our
good
country
place.
is now makes me sick and furious. The fact that our country has no moral core anymore, it makes me want to spit fucking nails. But at this point, I'll do anything to stop that because it's so morally reprehensible what we're doing to millions and millions and millions of people. So if saying, hey, folks, this is too expensive. Do you really want to fuck with your neighbor like that? I'll do it.
Yeah, did you see the?
I think it's.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say it's going to take economic actors, I think, to make these cases. It's going to take companies and organizations pointing out the way that these raids and the just the uncertainty around immigration in this country is going to affect their bottom line. The people with a lot of money, that tends to be the people Trump listens to. And so, in a way, it was heartening to see a very prominent organization push back against ICE this week. And the Los Angeles Dodgers did just that, denying ICE. ICE says it wasn't them. The Department of Homeland Security says it was Customs and Border Patrol. It's all under the kind of same umbrella. So I guess it maybe doesn't matter whose acronym was on the back of your shirt, but the Dodgers denied federal immigration authorities use of their stadium grounds, which the Dodgers have previously had a working agreement with maybe LAPD or the LA Sheriff's Department for law enforcement to use the parking lots and things for staging and whatnot. The Dodgers said, no, not this time. We do not want ICE in our community. The team was expected to announce plans to assist immigrant families who have been affected by these raids. But after the incident at Dodger Stadium, they did postpone that announcement. Hey, Tracie, you're a baseball fan up there. Cubs or Sox up there in the region for you?
I'm sorry, Scott. I would love to pretend that I'm a baseball fan, but I am really not. I stay out of that. And if I did, I would have to say Tigers because I'm a Detroit girl and we love our Tigers.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. I'm
a South Side. When you live near the South Side, and if I went and I said Cubs, somebody would club me in the back.
Yeah, and I'll play it safe and just say I'm a Dodgers fan right now.
Who isn't a Dodgers fan now?
Right now, I am. I think
Dodgers in 7.
Dude, anybody? Okay, guys. To be a little serious for just 1 second, we have seen time and again now, and this is the most heartening thing when companies or big organizations take a principled stand, they have benefited from it. Target is reeling, and there's a reason why. And, Costco is reaping the benefits of that. I'm very interested to see if the Dodgers taking this stance then has a ripple effect in other franchises. And if so, Godspeed, friends. I'll go sit at I would go sit at a Sox game for hours just to show support for that. And I know there's a lot of people that would do the same.
I think so too. It's very important for organizations that have a platform, and especially the kind of a visibility, a team like the Dodgers has. If you remember a couple months ago when the Trump administration was shaking down all these law firms, and they were all rolling over one by one until one of them stood up and said no, and then some of the ones that previously had rolled over were like,
oh, okay.
Hey,
never mind.
You can grow a backbone.
You can, but you know what? there are people like me that are taking notes. I know exactly who rolled the F over. And the lesson needs to be applied to everyone. You cannot.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need to reinforce at every juncture that complicity is not acceptable, and you will pay a price.
Yeah. Did you
Exactly.
see the start of the FIFA games in Miami? Maybe a couple of weeks ago. ICE was outside the stadium, and inside the stadium was almost empty. Like they were stopping so many people, and we have people coming from all over the world as soccer fans. This is FIFA. This is a world soccer tournament that the U.S. is hosting, and
Oh my God!
people couldn't get in to watch the game. Now others are canceling their trip to the U.S. Different countries are putting U.S. as a warning country not to go to, and it's affecting all of that. Not just the FIFA games, but all the economic impact, the positive economic impact that it could have in all the cities that will be hosting FIFA for the next month or so.
Well, it's really interesting. Like when you make vast swaths of humanity feel uncomfortable and and targeted in your country and unsafe.
Several tourists have been arrested or detained in New York. There was a woman from Chile who was dragged from her daughter, and they're on vacation.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to come here.
Yeah.
Why would you risk it? You can.
Yeah, and we're supposed to host the World Cup next year, right? We're talking about FIFA. It's the Club World Cup right now, which isn't, nearly as big an event, but, World Cup next year.
Mm-hmm.
Wait till we try to put it in our next
hosted
Olympics
between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. Yeah, I mean, boy,
we'll never get approved again.
Who's going to want to come here?
Yeah, I mean,
we're just going to wait till Saudi Arabia gives Trump $5 billion personally and then builds a stadium out there like he's doing with all his golf courses and golf tournaments.
Yeah. Yes. Quite a money laundering operation they got going on there, if you ask me. But I'm not an attorney or a forensic accountant. So, a couple quick hits before we move on to Indiana stuff. Trump, who is deporting American citizens, causing havoc in American streets, and bombing foreign countries, was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by Pakistan earlier this week, who cited his, quote, decisive diplomatic intervention following several days of cross-border skirmishes between India and Pakistan, the worst regional fighting there since 1971. Those are a couple of nuclear-armed countries. You notice no one really pushes them around. So listen. Question. Let me offer this to the group real quick. Obviously, the man does not deserve a Nobel Peace Prize, but he really, really, really wants one. He's been talking about it for years. If it would get him to ride off into the sunset and just go away, would you give him the Nobel?
No.
Because he won't go away.
No, seriously. We're having fun, Scott. No.
He will eye something else that he wants.
Yeah, that's a fantasy land. If I've ever heard one, he'll be like, wait, more. No, nothing will satiate his appetite for attention. Nothing.
I had a theory years ago where when the liberal media loved him and loved his asshole routine because they thought it was only an act.
That's not an act.
It's not an act now, but during his apprentice days, do you think he had ever actually fired somebody in person? No, he's a coward.
Yeah.
He's doing it because he's getting adulations.
Do that for you.
So I had always believed that if the liberals would have gotten behind him and said, "We love everything you're doing, please do," we could have taken the narrative. He has no allegiance to anyone but his ego. If we use his ego at this point, fuck it. I want to see the man. You know what? we're on a live show. I'm going to stop where I'm going with that. But I would like to see him leave permanently.
Yeah, and I love where you're going
Yeah.
with this, Cliff, because like that revisionist fantasy of what would it have been like had the Democrats gotten to Trump before the Republicans did is really a fascinating game to play. Because can you imagine a different world where he saw a path to attention and power that was paved down a liberal road, and it could have been so different. Now, I don't think we were wrong. I mean, you have to have,
Yeah.
you know, you have to have some standards in life, but can you, if his attention had just wavered in one other different,
I don't know if that guy had a face turn in him. This is the same guy who also this week complained about Juneteenth, which I just added and isn't in the rundown. So pardon me, but I wanted to throw this in here.
he used to be pro-abortion.
complained.
He used to be super liberal. If Trump had if somebody had come up to Trump and been like, hey, if like Obama had embraced him, and again, this is not Obama's fault. I don't give a shit what people say. It's not his fault. Trump is not Obama's fault. Let's all be clear on that. But if somebody had come up and been like, hey, you should run as a Democrat, we'll embrace you.
We have enough rapists running as Democrats as it is.
Yeah.
I shouldn't laugh.
Is that a segue to Indiana?
We'll get there.
Oh yes, we are. We're going to get to that here at the end of the show. But but this week,
liberals
Trump
can be
complained about
trashed just as
Juneteenth.
much as anyone else.
True. Yes, we can. Trump said about Juneteenth, quote, "Too many non-working holidays in America. It is costing our country billions of dollars to keep all of these businesses closed. The workers don't want it either. Soon we'll end up having a holiday for every working day of the year. It must change if we are going to make America great again." And Eric, you pointed the story out. Thoughts?
Yeah, and he made that comment on Juneteenth, which has only been a holiday, I think, for 2 years. Of course, put in place by Biden.
Biden's woke holiday. Yeah.
And a very important holiday, something that I never would have seen.
Yes.
I never would have anticipated happening in my lifetime. But it did mark the freedom of slaves, particularly in Texas, who 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, the word finally got down and said, by the way, you guys have been freed for 2 years. And so instead of being angry, they actually celebrated. Okay, we're free. It should have happened 2 years ago. And so it grew across the South, and now it grew nationally, and it's celebrated internationally now and is a federal holiday. I know that the federal government has been ordered by executive, I'll say command, executive orders not to celebrate these holidays, but
really?
it was celebrated all across the country. I was just we've had 2 or 3 of them here in South Bend. Notre Dame had a Juneteenth celebration last week, and yesterday the community had one. And so, yeah, he doesn't mask his his bias or his racism at all when he announces things like that, especially on a Juneteenth holiday. But however, if we suggested a holiday for him, like his birthday, at a parade, that would be okay, because that's what the American people want. Yeah, American people will take any holiday. Like, I don't get offended if someone says Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday, Happy Hanukkah. If it's a holiday I want to celebrate. Like, who doesn't want a day off?
Listen, we don't have nearly enough. The Europeans know how to have a good paid holiday. We should maybe guillotine more people, and then we'd have some more paid holidays. I don't know. Just throwing that out there. Hey, there wasn't all bad news this week. Friday, a judge ordered Mahmoud Khalil released from detention. This is the Palestinian Columbia grad student and activist who had been detained since March 8th. He was the first person arrested under Trump's crackdown on students who led pro-Palestine rallies on their campuses in response to the genocide in Gaza. Marco Rubio issued a memo specifically about this one kid, saying that he should be expelled from the country because his continued presence would harm American foreign policy. This guy's been in jail for 3 months. His wife is a U.S. citizen. She was pregnant and gave birth without her husband there next to her during his detention. Khalil said upon his release, quote, "Justice prevailed, but it's long overdue. This shouldn't have taken 3 months," end quote. Everybody is glad as I am to see Mahmoud Khalil out of jail here, Cliff.
Oh yeah. Again, having a brother-in-law that was in ICE prison for a year, it's horrible. The conditions are shitty. If it's anything like it is in Chicago, you're pretty much in a cell by yourself with nothing to do, no reading materials, nothing.
Oh
An
my God.
an hour to talk to a lawyer every week, and 1 hour a day to be able to go out for recreation, whatever. Recreation probably should not be the correct term for that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, a little bit of fresh air. Yeah.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Cliff, are we? You know what's really? I wonder sometimes if, maybe this is naive, but to me, the idea, conditions in ICE prison, it's something that's not on a lot of people's radars. Like, we're not really hearing a lot about that. Is that because people are afraid to talk about it?
We have made it clear that we do not allow journalists to see what's inside. We don't. Freedom of Information Act does not count for what's inside there. A lot of times they're run by third parties who say, we're not governed by the government because we are a third party agent. Therefore, we have no oversight. And usually those third party government or third party businesses,
like private contractors.
Yeah, private contractors are sitting there and they're doing it exactly to the letter of the law, designing their prisons the way the law intended, often being built by the US government and handed over so there is no oversight.
We need to get more people like your brother-in-law to testify to their experiences inside these facilities. I know that is a huge ask because that puts a target on your back. But man,
he's already being retargeted once again after having his case dismissed with prejudice. This should not have come back. It's the same case. Dismissed with prejudice means the judge said there's no merit to this case. It's gone.
Unfortunate. And so, well, that's just about the good news in the legal rulings portion of the program this week, because Judge Matthew Kacsmaryk, a far-right ideologue who previously attempted to ban the abortion drug mifepristone, this week struck down federal abortion privacy rules. The 2024 HIPAA Privacy Act, let me try that one more time. The 2024 HIPAA privacy rule that was implemented by the Biden administration was intended to protect patients in jurisdictions where abortion or gender-affirming care is illegal, and prevents disclosure to their local authorities, the private health information if they have sought care, like, abortion care or also gender-affirming care in places where those procedures are protected. So this Kacsmaryk guy, who, again, is a far-right ideologue, the Alliance Defending Freedom is a Christian nationalist legal organization. they got this case in front of this judge specifically so he would overturn this. If it stands, it would allow authorities in states like Texas, but also in Indiana, to obtain the medical records of patients who obtained care in legal states. So if you go to Illinois for reproductive care, if this is allowed to stand, Todd Rokita, the Indiana Attorney General, can get that information from across state lines. Very dangerous precedent.
Todd's already wanted to build a registry within Indiana.
He's a scary son of a bitch, man. I'll tell you.
Straight Handmaid's Tale with these guys.
It really it is. It's this. Luckily, I'm done with babies, so this is something that I don't have to worry about. But you know what? I mean, I have a kid that can carry a child, and yet these are things that we should just not have to worry about. I don't know.
We had these freedoms. Yeah.
Why it's such a topic of interest to the Republican Party. And I guess I'm wondering, like, maybe as these other horrible things take precedence, like, are we losing the focus and attention on this super important issue? Because I don't know about you, but I really don't like the idea of women bleeding out in parking lots because they're terrified to go get their miscarriage treated in an emergency room, or they're being refused care. And that's still where we are. And we've got Todd Rokita here governing and promoting himself as God's champion. It's just, how do you even begin to address this thorn of issues?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Scott.
Go ahead, Eric. I haven't heard you in a minute.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that there's a certain population, Catholics and others, who absolutely are against abortion. I don't know anyone who's pro-abortion. Most people are pro-choice, but anti-abortion, and that makes sense to me. But I don't know. I think that there's a lot of people on the right who don't have the same religious conviction, but they see the abortion issue as a rallying cry politically, and it's been working for them for years and years and years, and that's how they get people to the polls, and they put that as like a major, that like they're pro-life until birth, right? If a child is born Black or gay or disabled or poor, all of a sudden they lose their value at birth. But before they're born, they're so valuable. And I'm not promoting abortions. I want to promote healthy discussion with a doctor and someone who's qualified to do that and allow people to make their own decisions. I also think that if there was any law that would restrict men and what they do with their bodies, it would never, ever happen.
Oh, dear God, no. Absolutely not.
Right.
No. Women are the sex that are privileged to have their organs and other aspects of their lives directly under the gaze of the government. Nobody would ever reach up inside a man's body and say, you can do this or you can't do that. But, why I was hoping, and I know this is, again, a naive hope, but I had hoped that as the right found other rallying cries, now that they've achieved so many of their goals in regards to women and repression and the abortion issue, that perhaps we would see some slackening off on this topic but nope, we're still doing
No, we're talking about how we can keep going on with these far right ideas, these far right quote unquote Christian ideas. I'm a Christian. I believe in my religion. I cannot understand where they're getting their viewpoints from, because this is not the church that I grew up in. My church cared about anyone who showed up, and we were going to accept you for who you were. We're we're looking at it in this state. We have a governor who says if we got rid of interracial marriage, it would not be a problem for him. And he said that should be a state's right. How many states in this nation would ban interracial marriage tomorrow if they could? I could probably name 10 of them.
Absolutely. They would in a heartbeat, because of the fact that it would be such a wonderful way to get their base energized. And
of course, we just celebrated, or some celebrated, Loving Day, which marks the anniversary of Loving versus Virginia, the Supreme Court case that legalized interracial marriage. At least one of us on the panel would not exist if my parents are an interracial couple, and they met in England. They got married in Liverpool, England. It was illegal for them to get married in many states. And I was born a year before Loving versus Virginia. And my father was in the military. He was stationed from England to Louisiana, but because he was married to my mom, it was illegal for them to get married or be married in Louisiana. So they had to reroute them to Wyoming, where it was illegal for them to get married. But if you're already married, that's okay. And so that's actually where I was born a year after they moved there. And then Loving versus Virginia took place. But to have someone, it's bad enough that we wanted to, control what race somebody could marry. And now, we still try to control what genders can marry and things like that. Like, just let people live their best life. If you don't like gay marriage, don't marry somebody gay. If you don't like interracial marriage, then marry someone of your own ethnicity or race. It's simple, but we have to control what other people do.
Well, that's basically the schism, the Republican versus Democrat schism that's been going back for decades, is who gets to decide who gets rights and who don't. We can either control people.
Yeah, one last thing on in this along these lines. The Supreme Court of the United States, on a 6-3 decision along partisan lines, affirmed that states can enforce bans on gender affirming care for minors. This was a case that started out of Tennessee. John Roberts wrote for the majority, quote, "Our role is not to judge the wisdom, fairness, or logic of the law before us, but only to ensure that it does not violate the equal protection guarantee of the 14th Amendment. Having concluded it does not, we leave questions regarding its policy to the people, their elected representatives, and the democratic process." So you're allowing the people and the democratic process to determine whether people are people? I mean, I thought, people are who they say they are.
I thought we were done with determining. Oh my God. We cannot trust the people to determine who people are. I thought we'd learned that a 100 odd years ago. Because we used to say,
when we talk about protecting minorities in our Constitution, right, and the Republicans especially like to talk about how we're not a democracy, right? We're a republic, and a real democracy is mob rule, and that is what the founding fathers were really doing. They were putting in those protections so the mob couldn't take away rights from individuals. You couldn't, again, this is our founding document. These guys had a lot of problems because, they thought some people could be property. But those laws they wrote were meant specifically for things like this, that your personhood cannot be voted away by democratic processes. They've completely twisted what these things mean to this point, but that is the reason why we have protections in this country, and why there are certain things that we don't get to vote on.
And it really, transgender issues are so complex, and basically the narrative was hijacked by the right to make it seem like liberals are forcing kids to have transgender surgery in schools, and then a parent sends a kid as a woman, as a girl to class, and she comes back as a boy without the parents knowing. None of that happened. Transgenders in sports, like in the NCAA, there's 107,000 athletes in the NCAA. How many are transgender? Less than 10. It's just, they make it seem like the majority of people now are transgender, and that's just not the case. But another thing, and again, this is a tough issue because the general population doesn't know these issues, and they're intimidated, or they're afraid, or they hate the idea of this. So even
they just don't understand mostly.
They just don't understand. So someone came to my office, a transgender woman came to my office, and I asked a lot of questions. They just wanted to know about an organization that I was working with, and how friendly they would be to trans people. And so I did ask a question about trans athletes having an advantage. And she said the issue is if kids know their gender at a very young age, like they know, but we don't want them to be able to do anything about it until after puberty. But after puberty, that's when the sports advantage would kick in. If a young boy becomes a male and then transitions to a woman, then they've had their bone structure, their muscle density, all of that stuff kicks in during puberty, and that's when they'd have an advantage. But if someone is trans and they're allowed to take hormones and have a transition before puberty hits, the transition is easier, it's better, and there's less issues, and they would lose the testosterone and all those advantages that happen after puberty. Now, I'm not an expert, I don't know, but that seems to make sense to me. But I think that there needs to be more discussion about it.
I'm going to jump in here because I'm the parent of a trans kid, and it is not a complicated issue. It's a very simple one. People have been born between sexes since we've been crawling out of the primordial sea. Absolutely. It has never been male and female only. We've seen this in every type of reproductive nature for, again, since we crawled out of the oops. And it is not complicated to allow people to live the way their biology is determining they want to live. And you are absolutely right that giving these treatments during these formative years allows our children to live and establishes them in a life that they want to live in the best way possible. Getting all of this done before all of the hormonal development while their bodies are developing sets them up for a life later that is easier for them to manage, that allows them to do more and live more in these genders and sexes that they feel comfortable with. Trump rode in to this last election because people don't like to change pronouns. End of story. I'll stand by that forever. That is why Trump won, because it's uncomfortable and it's unpleasant to change your preconceived notions about what somebody is.
Yeah, that does a lot to do with it.
Thank you, Tracie.
There is
I was just going to say, how amazing is it that
similar... Go ahead, Eric.
I just think it's amazing that as these issues, like I had no idea that Tracie had a trans. You may have not have known that I was biracial. Like as these issues are coming up, how amazing is this panel that we have not only some political insight or some opinion on things, but some personal experience with some of these issues that it just makes it more meaningful. So I appreciate.
It really
appreciate
does.
that.
Yeah, it brings it home. There's a similar law in Indiana that's been in limbo, awaiting the results of this case. Indiana's Attorney General Todd Rokita, reacted on the former Twitter saying, "Victory! This is a massive win for Hoosiers, protecting our kids from irreversible harm." Really, Todd? Like, what about the irreversible harm of being forced by the power of the state to live in a body that doesn't match who you are? There is care available and approved by parents and doctors and people, who actually know what's going on. Todd Rokita doesn't know anything about trans care. He just knows how to be a bigot.
And people think that being like, we're up in Chicagoland, and people think that because of that you can go to Illinois, you can get that taken care of, and you cannot. These laws first came down right when my kid was asking for some transition care. And I mean, literally like within weeks. And I called every hospital, Lurie, every single major university. And even with Illinois' guarantee of, we'll protect our doctors against overreach from Indiana and prosecution from Indiana. Nope, they just won't do it. Their legal department still will not allow that care. And if you've ever seen a kid going through gender dysphoria, they can't go and look in the mirror. There's things that they can't do because they're so, I don't understand that experience, but it is profound and it is real. Nobody chooses to feel uncomfortable in their skin because it's convenient or they want to win a soccer game. It's deeply uncomfortable and it impacts every aspect of living. So I cannot talk about, again, even more how upsetting it is to think that we were so close to living in a world where our kids could be free to be themselves, and that just vanished overnight. And I gotta stop. I'm gonna get.
Yeah.
I see my friends who have transitioned, and I can say it was a little jarring watching them transition. Now I see them fully as themselves, and it is a remarkable change. I studied psychopharmacology in grad school. If an antidepressant had an 85% success rate, it would be a goddamn miracle drug. We know that 85% have no question that their gender transition is amazing. We know about 15% more are like, I think I'm better, but I don't know how much better. So it's not saying 15% don't like it. They're just saying, I don't know if I'm still comfortable with it. And that might come down to socioeconomic issues in the community saying, I'm being treated like shit. When people get the transition care that they want, it's profound seeing how amazingly changed they are as a person. I don't care about the gender. I don't care about anything else. I care that they're happy and healthy.
Yes.
And they're not looking to end their lives over this bullshit.
Well, I guess Todd Rokita's bigotry is a good way to transition into our Indiana stories. In a segment I like to call Around the Corn. We'll start with a little brief.
Such a great name.
We'll start with a little brief story here I saw this week. So, Adam Wren cited three unnamed sources in reporting that, boy, Mike Braun's been kind of bored and unhappy in his role as governor, here just 6 months into the job, and is maybe having private discussions about running for president in 2028. Now, Braun this week comes out and says he is not interested.
Bullshit.
Cliff, do you believe him?
Bullshit. Every middle manager thinks that they can excel to the top, and he is absolutely the middle manager we do not need.
The middle manager. There we go.
I can safely say there's not a politician I've ever met that didn't think, you know what, I could take one step higher. Yeah. On a lark, I ran for lieutenant governor last year because I did, because we had Republican light candidates for both our governor.
I thought I recognized your name from somewhere.
I I said I want to be the one person who's always said that women should have rights, that gays should have rights, and women shouldn't be in the kitchen. I'm not gonna disparage any of your past guests, Scott. Um, so I ran at the convention. You know what? Even though that was a lark that knew that I had no chance, somebody comes to me and says, "What if you ran for governor next time?" I'm like, ah,
Christ. You know,
it would be the stupidest thing ever. But you know what? It also makes sense. There is not a single politician who doesn't have grandiose thoughts that they can take it all over.
you know,
And
when
Mike
I
Braun
saw
is the
it,
same
well.
idiot.
I was like, "Ooh,
Eric.
finally, good. Well, you know, go Godspeed, go have fun." But then I remembered how I felt when Pence was picked as Trump's running mate, and I'm like, "Yeehaw! We'll finally get rid of this problem." And then look how that worked out. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Holcomb was better than Pence. Yeah, Braun's a distinct downgrade from Holcomb. Eric, would Braun have any shot of securing that Republican nomination, or is he one of these one percenters?
Yeah, I think you have the assumption that Trump is actually going to leave the White House at some point. Like, I don't know. There may not be another election. He mentioned that before on the campaign trail. If you vote for me this one time, you'll never have to vote again. I'm not sure what he meant by that, but
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah,
what
I
he
think
meant by that. He meant exactly what it said.
yes. So my hope is that Braun would not have a chance at president, or I wish he couldn't get elected again, but I'm glad that he's getting bored, with this job, so he's uninterested. And the difference between Braun and Holcomb is Holcomb was a decent person. He was a Republican, not a MAGA. In my opinion, I don't know. That's how I perceived him. I also had one of my closest friends up here worked for Holcomb, Kara Herring, who was the chief equity officer for the state of Indiana, who Mike Braun fired her entire office his first day with an executive order, and all the other DEI people across the state. And so, and she knew that was coming, and she wasn't going to work in the position beyond Holcomb anyway. So she had already vacated the office. But yeah, Braun is not. He doesn't have what it takes to be president, and he's doing a terrible job as a governor.
You
He
know,
does not have the range. Yes.
he
Um,
he
well,
betrays
go ahead, Tracy. Sorry.
he betrays Indiana's tradition. Like when we first moved here, Mitch Daniels was Indiana's governor, and that's
Yeah.
why we felt safe moving here from Illinois, is because Indiana had a grand tradition of moderation in their state Republican government. And I mean, we elected Obama. So
Once.
now, once, yes.
Yes.
But, and I'll still stand by the fact that Indiana is far more purple than people think it is. But
Oh, yes.
I'm hoping that maybe as he continues to just be bored, because it's not easy to be the governor of a state. It's a lot more nuts and bolts and pig teeth and topics that you don't want to care about, that you have to, and it's not glamorous, that people will start seeing why Indiana thrives better with a more moderate Republican Party, because I'll take it. I did not have a problem with Holcomb. I didn't have a problem with Mitch Daniels, and I'm a progressive Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the Indiana that forwarded that moderate values. I'm hoping that maybe as he continues to fuck shit up, we'll go back there. Do you think that's ever possible?
Well, I think there were a lot of problems with those guys in the first place. Although I would, I would take Holcomb or Daniels in a second compared to Mike Braun.
I mean,
but yeah, those guys can't skate because they paved the way here.
True.
Fair enough.
So in addition to Mike Braun, they paved the way for clowns like Diego Morales, who was getting grilled by the state budget committee this week. He was asking for $10 million in new spending authority in his office. Now, he's nearly doubled the size of his office staff since 2022. He's awarded no bid contracts to campaign donors. Spent $90,000 on a luxury vehicle using state money. He's traveling to India and Hungary, jet setting all over the world for personal appearances, and missing.
We prefer him out of the
state
country.
business.
But not on our
fair, but
tax
we are
dollars.
paying the guy to be here doing work. And Morales, took all the criticism and doubled down, saying, "quote, I won't apologize. My work ethic is unmatched. I arrive at the State House by 5 a.m. every day. Nobody outworks me." Well, I think to Clif's point, yeah, maybe we wish you weren't there at 5 a.m. outworking everybody doing bad. So, what do we think? Should Diego get his $10 million, or should he find that maybe in the cushions of his $90,000 state-bought luxury SUV?
That one.
All right, so that's our little quick hit on Diego. I do want to spend the rest of our time today talking about the continued mess in the mayor's office in Indianapolis, which we've been following here. I think every week we've been doing this show. New developments this week as another city county councilor calls for Mayor Joe Hogsett to resign. Councilor Krista Carlino also called for Council President Vop Osili and Vice President Allie Brown to step down from leadership. All this follows a finance committee meeting this week where the councilors debated and then approved paying the final $300,000 legal fees to Fisher Phillips, the law firm that conducted the investigation into sexual harassment in the mayor's office. Now, this investigation really only focused on Thomas Cook, the mayor's former top lieutenant, omitting creepy behavior by the mayor himself. Now, many people believe that the mayor and his allies on the council, namely Osili and Brown, influenced the scope of the investigation. Carlino joins Jesse Brown and Andy Nielsen as fellow Democratic councilors calling for Hogsett's resignation. So, first of all, now, Clif, this is right in your wheelhouse. Are we reaching critical mass here with Carlino now calling for Hogsett's resignation? Is this the one that, bursts the dam open?
I don't think it is. Not yet. The problem right now is we have a large block of people within the city council who have gone out of their way to defend the mayor at all stops. We have people like we have Carlos, who pretty much made a statement saying, you know what, sexual harassment's what you do as a man.
Wow.
This isn't exactly what he said, so I'm paraphrasing what I read. It may not be exactly that at all, but that's what I saw when I saw his statement. I've seen others who know that they've gotten their positions. They're not going to. Most of the people on the council have incomes in their day jobs that are 100% based on city kickbacks, and those city kickbacks are all funded by the mayor. If you get any money from the CICF, the Central Indiana Fund, that is being directed by the mayor. If you are getting anything from any local charity, I thought about stepping down at the university, and I've applied for director at a few nonprofits over the last 3 years. I have been told multiple times it's not going to happen because we depend on our money from Joe Hogsett. Christina Carlino made the comment after the last admin council that she lost her job with Recycle Force soon after she took a stand last year it wasn't even the stand that she took last week. It was the fact that she was chairing the committee that she believes she was fired from. And knowing what I know about the city, every time I step up and I say something bad about it, my boss gets a call from somebody anonymous and they say, well, are you talking about blah, blah, blah employer? I don't talk about my employer online or otherwise. And they say, well, no, this is about how he acts in the city. And they say, well, have a great day. I have had multiple friends who have been threatened. I've had friends go into the director of their nonprofit to say, if you open your mouth about anything about Hogsett once again, you will be dismissed without any notice.
Is that legal?
Right?
Sadly, it is.
That's what I'm coming from. Because this sounds like, I mean, it almost as scandalous as the harassment taking place in his office. I mean, we're basically using the power of the mayor's office, the power of the city to, big dick every employee of every organization in the city that does any business with the city or the county. That's what's the word for that? Oh, corruption. That's the word I'm looking for.
Oh yeah.
So the drama continued. Vice President of the Council, Allie Brown, tweeted, quote, Councilor Krista Carlino knows full well that I had no involvement in defining the scope of the investigative committee. She is also fully aware of why I did not participate in the committee she chaired or in shaping the contract for the investigation. I confided in my caucus colleagues that this situation triggered severe trauma, including flashbacks to the night I was assaulted at 18 years old in a freezing back alley. I spent years in therapy, including intensive EMDR treatment, just to survive what happened to me. Now, Krista is weaponizing that trauma for her own political gain. It's disgraceful. I am deeply hurt. I feel profoundly betrayed, but I will not stand by while falsehoods are spread, especially when I have the evidence to disprove them. The entire spectacle from Councilor Carlino is an exploitation of my pain and a mockery of serious issues. Krista Carlino should be ashamed. End quote. Fierce Democrat on Democrat action. And now, listen, story is true. Like, I empathize with Councilor Brown. That's a terrible story, and I'm sorry that she had to go through that. But is it just me, or is she making this about her right now, when this story should be about the women who were harassed in the mayor's office? Like, that is the scope of this investigation, and this is personal now.
I consider Allie a friend. I don't know if she considers me a friend at this point right now, because I looked online and I am no longer friends with her on Facebook. I have had tons of private conversations with her over the last probably 5 years. I knew her before she was running for office. I knew her because I knew her when she was running for office. And she's been frank about this incident to people she was close with. I am not going to discuss that because it is a horrific statement. However, I will say this. When you're in leadership position, it stops being about you. It stops being about your fears and traumas. If you cannot stand up for the people who need you the most, get the fuck out of the way and let somebody else lead.
Amen.
This is again, Allie, if you're listening, I still consider you a friend. But if you need to get out of the way, please get out of the way, because you're not serving anyone at this moment.
Especially, yeah, as someone, it sounds like, who's been victimized by a man using power over her, that she would side with the abusers in this case. Friend of the show, counselor Jesse Brown, pointed out in response to this tweet by Allie Brown that he, Jesse, was removed from the Democratic caucus on the council for calling out a Democratic colleague by name, and wonders if the same standard will be applied to Miss Brown here, who publicly called out Ms. Carlino. Eric, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I've been really removed from being up north. I know that Tracie's up north as well, but I haven't heard much about it. I learned about all these things from your previous podcast.
Yeah, and Eric, I'm watching this because up here, we have Chicagoland politics, and we see that, and we know what dirty mud is. But is this Clif Scott? Is this like Indianapolis? Is this how things roll there? Because
okay. we've had several cases over the last several years that involve sexual harassment. We had one Republican who was accused of something. By all means, he was actually one of the moderate Republicans, somebody that I could talk to. Within 3 days of the allegations coming out against him, he said, "You know what? I'm out." So he said, "You know what? I've been accused of this. This is the right thing to do. We're leaving." 4 years ago, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, we had Stephen Clay, there was allegations against him. And when allegations came against him, the council kind of rose up against it and said, "Look, you need to do something." He wasn't kicked off the council, but he was taken out of leadership. Here in our city, we have people like, I'm trying to make sure I don't say the wrong name, Greg Taylor, is that the correct one?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Taylor, yes.
I want to make sure I'm not using, because I almost said the wrong name before, where he has been accused
I did that before as well too.
I do not want to.
There's another Greg.
Yes, he's been accused of following women into restrooms and accosting them in restrooms. And instead of denying the whole thing, he says, "You know what? I think there were just mixed wires." Honest to fuck, if I walk into a women's restroom and put my arms around a woman, I'm going to go to jail. I'm not going to say it's mixed wires. We've had other
really
counselors
easy not to do that. It's super easy not to go into a woman's restroom and touch women in there. It's not hard.
I have people telling me,
people that do this shit, like, why as a party can't we stop it?
Yeah, I've had people tell me that this is all about cancel culture, and I say, you know what? Cancel culture is not sexual harassment, sexual assault, rape. You know what? In a sense, there are a lot of horrible things I've thought in my life. There are times where I look at somebody, I'm like, yeah, if he were dead, my life would be so much easier. I've never looked at a woman and said, you know what? Rape seems on the table. There are certain things that are just not done as a good person. These are things that I'm like, there is no coming back from following a woman into a restroom and putting hands on her. There is no going back to. There are stories that some of the people are talking about that had come out in the city, or had come out years ago. Allie had admitted she knew that the stories were true, that she knew all about them, that she was approached by one of the victims before she even ran for council. And she said, well, this is one of the reasons I'm running, because I want to protect women. This is Honestly, we are trying to do Chicagoland politics in Indianapolis, and we're doing it badly.
Yeah, no, you make a good point there, Cliff. The thing is, so much of the money and the power in the Indiana Democratic Party there is centered in Indianapolis. So what happens in Indy really percolates through the whole state and winds up infecting the entire party. And as an Indiana Democrat that wants to see us win and do well, but win and do well for the right reasons, and on a good platform that'll make people's lives better, not to win and hold power just for the sake of winning and holding power.
Right.
This is one ruining the whole brand. It makes Democrats statewide look bad, and then you especially when you get things like Indiana Democratic Party Chair Karen Tallion's statement this week in response to this, which, by the way, entirely too late. She should have had comment on this weeks, if not months ago. But, and I'm going to read her whole statement because it's a doozy. So she says, within days of each other, I watched two startling events unfold on video. U.S. Senator Alex Padilla was strong-armed out of a Republican-controlled press conference by law enforcement, shoved to the ground and handcuffed. Americans watched in outrage. At the June 9th, 2025 County Council meeting in Indianapolis, controlled by Democrats, multiple women were forcibly shoved out. Watched in outrage. Both of these incidents were appalling to watch and excruciating to acknowledge. Okay. I have seen peaceful protesters be silenced and bullied by police, judges, and law enforcement officers. America witnessed the civil rights movement and the Vietnam War protests as people like Alabama Governor George Wallace and Judge Julius Hoffman became symbols of oppression. Forcibly removing people from a public meeting is not the way we fix our problems and settle our issues in a democratic society. This applies to both parties. Councillor Bob Osley has hopefully learned a valuable lesson in how not to conduct a meeting. Unlike Kristi Noem, however, he apologized. Let's digest that portion of her statement before we move on. Boy, we went grandiose there, didn't we? Bringing Vietnam protests and George Wallace into this thing, and comparing Kristi Noem and ICE's treatment of Senator Padilla to Councillor Vop Osley having Lauren Roberts and some of the other survivors of harassment in the mayor's office removed. And then she just sort of brushes it under the rug. Oh, well, Vop said, my bad. I don't even think he really did. Cliff, did he apologize, or did he just say, I maybe should have handled that differently? Did he apologize to Roberts? Did he apologize to Elise Schrock?
There is no apology that I saw. I was in the fracas that ended up everybody, like about 6 of us, being escorted out of the room, out of the building, off the property, because no one would stand up for the women. Only 2 men stood up for the women to say, this is wrong. I didn't see a single city councilor, including Allie Brown, get up to say shit. I did not see anybody say anything. This is wrong. Vop has been doing this for months. He has been doing this, escorting out people protesting for things such as Palestine. Do I think Palestine needs to be discussed in a city council meeting? Personally, no. However, that's what people wanted to speak about. And I saw 2 people in wheelchairs power lifted out of the room in the last year.
Wow.
Just manhandled. What I saw last Monday was horrifying. I saw a sexual assault victim get manhandled, where she made the statement that she had not felt this roughed up since she was hurt by Thomas Cook. I saw Ms. Schrook get groped multiple times by an officer as he's trying to pull her out, and Vop just smiling. I was 3 feet away from. Actually, I'm not going to call him Vop. He calls himself Vop as voice of the people. That motherfucker does not speak for the people. It is Samuel Osley. Samuel grinned. He smiled. He did incredible flourishes with his hands. Is like, look at what I'm doing. I'm so powerful. Fuck you, people. You are insignificant. Fuck him. He should be out of the council. He shouldn't just lose his leadership position. The man has gleefully harmed people. And his apology was never an apology. It was, I'm sorry I got caught. I'm sorry that you think that this was wrong of me. Maybe we could discuss how I could do the same thing in the future without offending all the people.
Yeah. So it sounds like Osley is really the mayor's muscle is the way he's doing, and using his position as council president to protect Hogsett. Talion's statement continued by detailing a list of actions the Indiana Democratic Party has taken to prevent this sort of behavior within their ranks. Now, she says in 2024, then IDP Chair Mike Schmuel took positive action and began the task of creating a code of conduct that would govern the state party, its employees, and other members of the Democratic Party. This code of conduct was adopted by the State Central Committee in December of 24. So, following the March 2025 party reorganization, as the new chair, I, Karen Talion, immediately appointed members to the newly formed Ethics Committee in coordination with the Rules Committee. The Ethics Committee promptly created a procedure by which complaints involving code of conduct violations could be submitted and reviewed. With regards to the conduct of Thomas Cook, the Indiana Democratic Party wholeheartedly condemns sexual harassment of any kind and believes that the institutional culture that perpetuates this should be finally rooted out everywhere. We believe everyone should feel safe in the workplace. No formal complaint against Cook has ever been filed with the party. The party has taken the following steps to provide a safe working environment. 1, unionized our staff with the contract listing code of conduct parameters. 2, retained an outside human resources firm. 3, updated our employee handbook, which we require all employees to sign. 4, required all employees to complete sexual harassment training. 5, created the code of conduct ethics committee and formalized a process to review code of conduct violations. Included a list of sexual harassment training partners in the refreshed county party handbook, and put a procedure in place for handling these kinds of allegations. She closes by saying the Indiana Democratic Party exists to elect Democrats across the entire state of Indiana. Thousands of Hoosier Democrats are doing dynamic work every day. County chairs across the state report that Hoosiers are responding in great numbers to the abominations of the Trump administration. Yada, yada. Our focus is on improving the lives of Hoosiers by electing Democrats. So I have thoughts on this lengthy statement, but Tracie, as the resident woman in our panel here today, what do you have to say about that?
It's watching our state Democratic Party contort itself around this topic is painful. I don't think when you start talking about HR handbooks, that's kind of where issues go to die. I don't.
Yep.
I think that's really what they're trying to do. I think nobody likes the look of what's happening in Indianapolis, but nobody wants to unseat the current mayor. They just don't want to do it because it comes up with all kinds of mess after. I think the idea is people are scared of who will follow. I don't know if there is a risk that a Republican could take over in Indianapolis or not, but that's what I'm really smelling here, is that people are really wanting this issue to go away. They don't want to discuss it. They don't want to draw attention to the fact that we have yet once again elected a white male that harasses women. And they and Carrion is in the unenviable position of having to try to manage that mess. I mean, you have to tune it out at some point because, you know, like there's not really any substantive action taking place here. And I think that that's going to be the continue to be the trend until there's until there's something so horrific that pops up that you can't ignore it anymore.
Yeah. Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but this whole thing kind of seems like typical squishy establishment Democrat hemming and hawing. It's a list of statements, and it's like, yeah, we put procedures and policies in place, and we have to, you know, sign paperwork and do trainings. It's okay, Karen, great, but like,
yeah,
can we just do the thing?
Yes.
Listen. You've worked in large organizations, doing things like, you know, trainings and whatnot. You know, these things are important, but at the end of the day, it's not sufficient. Like, that can't be it, right?
Right, and I think that there's a couple of things came to mind as I heard you talking about the case and the response and the letter. One, there was a time when the U2 movement just came out, and Al Franken, remember, was you know, an old video clip of him. He was a comedian, and you know, it was inappropriate. He just stepped down, and there was a time when people had no due process. Like, you were accused and you were gone. Your careers were over, whether it was in politics or in entertainment or whatever. And I thought that was wrong. Like, I thought people need due process, right? This isn't due process either. This is just burying it, covering it up. This reminds me of after George Floyd was murdered, all these, you know, universities and corporations came out with this beautiful statement on how they stand with diversity. And it's like, thank you for your eloquent statement. Can I see your board of trustees or board of directors now? And it's all white men or whatever. So they don't really mean it. It's just going through the motions. And I think that, you know, yes, it's a terrifying political time right now. We don't want to lose any Democrats, but we have to stand by what's right, you know. Yeah.
I mean, aren't we tired as a party of having to hold our nose and pretend our values don't matter to us?
Oh my God, right?
I'm sick of it. You know, I don't want to ever again. And I'm not going to apologize for saying, nah, dude, you can't grope women in the bathroom.
Right.
You know, you can't discriminate against gay people. You can't discriminate against trans people. You need to let people live, and you can't discriminate against migrants. Like, I'm sick of it being in the case of political expediency and to appeal to a centrist audience that we can't say that these things aren't okay. And that's basically what we're trying to do as a party in this state, because of the fact that we have so many centrist Democratic politicians, and they're desperate to keep their districts in place. And at some point, we have to say it's not okay to do that anymore, that we have to stand by the values we believe in.
That's the thing, Tracie. You know, it's a statement, right? The stereotype about Democrats is like, oh, we'll issue a strongly worded letter, but never actually do the thing. Well, here is her, you know, mealy mouth, weakly worded letter, and the last paragraph kind of conflicts with the entire body of the letter. She's talking about, you know, the party existing to elect Democrats across the entire state. And, you know, our focus is improving the lives of Hoosiers by electing Democrats and beating Republicans. And listen, if we can't distinguish ourselves from them with, you know, their crappy behavior and their retrograde attitudes toward women, how are we going to win races if people think both parties are the same? You know, if you can't stand up and just do the right thing, how are you going to elect Democrats if people think, you know, all you have is a strongly worded letter and no action? It's self-defeating and I don't know, myopic nearsighted. I don't know, man. I was not super happy with the new leadership in the party when it was selected, and I've had really no reason to come around on that since.
Karen,
We cannot keep doing things as Democrats in Indiana the same way if we want to turn this ship around. And I feel like we've been doing things the same way. We're just waiting on Evan Bayh to walk back in the door.
No, and I think what's really so I have being involved in politics up here, we have a lot of cross the border collaborations. We know Democrats that have moved over here from Chicagoland, and they see the party and they're just shocked by the way that we run. And the reason that we run that way is that we are a party that has become accustomed to losing. And we don't know anymore how to operate as a party that knows how to win. And to be fair to Karen Talion, she, I'm not going to lie. I wanted Destiny. I was pissed when Karen was floated to the top and some of the ways that occurred. But that said, Karen Talion was a badass. Before being a badass was awesome. She, she was really there for workers. She was in the trenches and she did that before it was popular. But that said, now she's in a position where she really needs to start setting the tone so that we can start winning. Because I'm really tired of being asked to go door knock for candidates that I really don't feel comfortable supporting. And I'm not going to fucking do it. I'm not doing it. Because as a party, I am not going to be asked to say that I believe in something that I don't. That's not who I am. And that's not who I'm going to be. And that's not how we should behave as a party. We shouldn't ask our people to say, oh, okay, they're all right for now. No, we're done with that.
Up there, right around the corner from you, the Evanston area in Illinois, just up the lake in the 9th district there's a young woman, Kat Abu Ghazaleh, running for Congress, and her motto is, what if, I love her, but her motto is, what if we didn't suck? And that's kind of a really important question for Democrats right now. Yeah, you said we're used to losing, and it's right. It's a party. The Indiana Democratic Party is a party on its heels. It's a party that's on defense and not going on offense and not being big and bold, doing things you need to do. So you get stuff like this. You get whatever little stronghold you have, be it the mayor's office in Indy, or the 7th congressional district, or the 1st congressional district up there. You hold on to it, and you defend your little fort there, and
that only protects you until
you're
your
left defending.
Districted.
Yeah, you wind up defending crappy people because, well, that's your guy in your little fort, and you got to hold on to that thing. And it really is taking the small victory and completely eschewing any potential to get the big thing.
They're winning the battle and losing the war.
And not even winning the battle.
No.
yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. I mean, you win the race, but again, at what cost? To what end? I mean, why have
are these
power?
The battles we want to fight? Do we want to fight for the right?
Yeah. And it really does. It makes the rest. Joe Hogsett is the most prominent elected Democrat in Indiana. Most people in Indiana that watch Indiana news, so that's discounting, you folks up there in the region, Tracie. That's discounting the people down in the Louisville area who get most of their news from down there. People who are watching Indiana political news, when they think a Democrat, it's Joe Hogsett, and that harms all of us.
It harms it harms our brand as a party. It harms it provides opposition a gold mine of messaging nuggets that they can just throw around like candy. you know, why are we making Republicans' job easier for them?
In any other state, Joe Hogsett would have been a Republican. If you look at his donors list, it all comes
Mm-hmm.
from big businesses who regularly vote Republican. How many people on the Simon payroll or has the last name Simon going to vote or give money to Joe Hogs? I've debated that man twice, and everybody in the news said you had substantive statements where Joe just said, we're staying the course. He has no policy other than I'm going to give corporations what they want. And in politics, money is everything. And when you have billionaires, you have the folks from you have billionaires in Indiana giving him money.
Yeah.
Well, Cliff, now wait a sec there. We've been seeing, though, that in politics, money is not everything. Look what happened when Elon Musk decided to muck around with his money up in Wisconsin. That backfired. If we had a Democratic Party that was not back on its heels, they could use that shit to their advantage.
Here
So
in our city, we had Joe Hogsett with something like 95% of the money for our city council, or like 95% of the money of all the candidates, council wise, federal, state. He was doling out the money. If you wanted to run against, or if you were running in the state, in the central Indiana region, you had to ask him for money. And if you wanted to be on the door knocker that was being hung, the backside of the door knocker said, vote for Joe Hogsett. I had about 7 city councilors who came to me and said, look, I cannot publicly support you or else I will lose all the money I have. The Democrats have to stop taking money from horrible people. We have to stop taking money from billionaires. We have to say, look, in places like Indianapolis, we're going to win regardless. We don't need $300 million put into our campaign because all that's doing is pulling in corporate Democrats.
Yeah.
And why not turn Indianapolis into the perfect place to make that stand because they're so low risk? That's what I'm not understanding about what is the rush to protect.
Oh, trust me, I've been working on this. I've run against
I think
Joe
this is-
Hogsett
yeah.
in the past.
Well, I wish I could vote for you.
I think this is typical
Thank you.
to large Democratic cities everywhere, and really any place where there's like a safe Democratic seat. Money, oligarchical power finds its way in wherever it can. So normally, yeah, the Republican Party is their preferred vessel, but in places where the Democratic Party is kind of locked in, you're going to find money flowing into these conservative or centrist Democrats because that's how influence is to be had in those jurisdictions. So, yeah, you get folks who are basically Republicans with a D next to their name, like Hogsett, and if you look, it happened in Chicago too. You know, the dailies were very much like that. Rahm Emanuel was like that. I think they got a good one there now, but money is always going to come for progressives and trying to run them out of there. So listen, hey, we've been here for almost 2 hours today, and I really want to thank you guys for sticking around and for this extra long, jam-packed show. And I wanted to give all of y'all on the panel.
Yep, you just cut out, so we didn't hear what you wanted to give us.
What you were saying was really nice.
He's telling us how amazing we all are.
Yeah. Cliff, you're awesome. I'd vote for you. Eric, I'd vote for you too. Tracy, woo!
He's going to try to come back in. Here we go.
Here we go.
Nope.
We're all agog. What did you say about us? We can't
No.
I think, was he going to tell us that we can each have a closing statement? Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe he was going to tell us.
Yes, that's what it was.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Closing
So
statement.
I did. There is something I didn't get a chance to say last week on a show. I can't remember the gentleman, but was just talking about voting and getting people out to vote and make because so many people are discouraged and there's all these voter restrictions. I think if we're going to be out protesting by the millions, for God's sakes, register to vote. Make some tangible political clout out of all of these statements. And I'll just give a little history. When the Tea Party came out against Obama's health care, they rallied, they registered to vote, and they ran tons and tons of candidates, and they took over the Republican Party, right? And it changed politics forever. We had Occupy Wall Street. It became an experiment in, leadership and, no political, it even went global, but no tangible political change came of that. So George Floyd was murdered. Millions of people marched all over the country and all over the world, and no tangible political change happened. We didn't register people. We didn't vote new people. So Clif, by all means, run again, but we should also be getting other people to keep running and keep.
I want somebody more competent.
Okay,
there are more competent people than me.
Fair enough, but we have to run people, right? Rudy Yakum is our congressman from the 2nd District. He didn't show up for the candidate debates. He refused to have town hall meetings up here. He lives here. He lives in Granger, right next to South Bend. He goes along with everything Trump says, including all the cuts to Medicare and Medicaid and everything that Trump does. He just signs on to it automatically. We've got to get someone to run against him, but he won't even show up for the debates. And he doesn't represent South Bend. He represents whoever else he represents, but he won't come to a meeting. He won't have a town hall meeting. He won't come to a debate. So we've got to force people to engage with us, and we have to run other people for office. I'll stop there.
Thanks, Eric. Hey, can you guys hear me again? Am I back?
We can.
Yep, we can hear you.
We can.
Okay, yeah, my lavalier mic died, so I'm I believe just on my my earpiece now. Yeah, so Eric, thank you for that lovely statement. Clif, were you able to talk while I was gone, or
no,
I
talked the whole time.
Or we just talked smack about you.
Oh, great.
We got to hear from Eric, who was telling us amazing things.
Yep, you missed it. Ha
Who else has a closing statement? Clif or Tracie?
Clif.
Well, actually, let me jump in really quick, Eric, and tell you that I'm very active in the protest movement up here in NWI, and that is a debate we're having right now: is how to get voting drives included in every single protest. It is trickier than you would think because they started making it much more difficult to register people. It used to be very easy. We did a ton of it during the Harris Waltz campaign.
Yes.
And we tried to sneak, and we just did a whole bunch of last minute drives before the new regulations took place. But that is a discussion we're having right now about how to make certain, because right now, I mean, we have food drives and all that. It's ridiculous that there's a wasted opportunity to get engaged voters in these places where they're active. I think it speaks to the fact that we really need the Democratic Party to step the fuck up and start taking the reins and organize this. They have not been active in the protest movement. They've been really letting people like grassroots groups like mine just step up and do it because nobody else would.
Agreed. Same here.
We're seeing the same. We're seeing like a new wave of organization around that now. I'm guessing you're seeing the same there. Mm-hmm. And I'm really hoping that some leadership with money and organizational skills takes over so that we don't have to jury rig everything. And that's my closing statement. Like, Democrats, come on, let's move. It's time to get organized. It's time to get some power behind it. And I want our party to step up.
And I strongly believe that the majority, the vast majority of the U.S. citizens are Democrats or left-leaning.
Yes.
But we keep losing all these elections.
On the issues, yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Tracie, where can folks up in Northwest Indiana find you if they want to get involved with NWI Takes Action?
So we are on Facebook, and we also have a new Substack page that hosts our new podcast, Blue Arrival, which I'm very excited about. So, yeah, that's how you can find
Excellent.
us. We do organizing. We are sort of a community center. We started out as the Facebook page for our Harris Waltz campaign office up here in Gary. Which helping to organize that. I was a small part of that office, but it was probably the best experience of my life. Oh my God, a whole other podcast. But
Thanks for
yeah,
that work,
that's where you
Tracie.
find us.
Cliff, you want to bring this thing home?
I'm just happy to see all of y'all here. I'm glad to have talked with you. I'm glad to have met you, Eric. Glad to have met you,
Likewise.
Tracie.
Same.
Scotty, always glad to see you. I want to see you in person again soon. Need to grab some dinner sometime when I'm down south at my employer's south side location. My employer, who I cannot discuss. um, um, I am heartened knowing that so many people are actually seeing how our party is failing and realizing we need to fix it. We need to fix it and not just keep doing what we've done in the past, because what we've done in the past is not working. And we can't just keep pushing more towards the right, saying, you know what, maybe if we ignore all the left-leaning people and try to grab a few Republicans who are still sane, maybe we'll win this time, because that never happens.
It
We
never
need to
happens. Didn't work. Look how it worked out for us last time.
I saw stats that said we lose 4 progressives for every single Republican that we actually get. I want to be focusing on numbers. I'm a numbers guy. I want to see what is our best chance of winning. We're focused on the status quo, and I feel like I'm in a great group who believes the status quo is not working. So thank you all.
Thank you, Cliff.
Thank you.
Appreciate all of you guys being here today. Tracie Martin, Eric Love, Clif Marsiglio, love all you guys. Thanks for joining me here on Who's Left this week. Thank you all in the audience. We'll be back next week. And until then, love each other, Indiana.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys.